Hello everyone, my name is Gracie James Grimes and I'm a fourth year at the University of Georgia studying animal and dairy science with a minor in agribusiness and management. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite anatomical feature, which is the thyroid and parathyroid glands. Now these glands may be very small, but they have a huge impact on the body in domestic animals. They play a crucial role in maintaining the body's homeostasis, which is our key to survival. The thyroid maintains your metabolism, growth, and development, while the parathyroid maintains things like your calcium and phosphorus balance. So let's dive into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the endocrine system, which is what the thyroid and parathyroid glands are a part of. Now, to give you a very simple definition of a complex system, is that the endocrine system is a complex network of glands and organs that work together to secrete hormones and maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis being that happy medium that your body is in to survive. So the endocrine system actually secretes long-term scale responses in its hormones. And that's the big difference between it and the neurosystem. The neurosystem gives very fast responses, but they're very short term. They don't last very long. So the endocrine system, while it takes longer to elicit that response because it does have to travel through the bloodstream, it lasts longer in the body and has a much longer and more impactful response. The endocrine system also affects other systems within the body, not just other organs within the endocrine system. It also affects other systems entirely. But all of that depends on the hormone responses, depends on the location and the types of responses that it's telling the body to react. All right, so first up we have the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is located anterior to the trachea and inferior to the larynx, which is right here. This is the thyroid gland, and this is a bigger kind of zoomed in view of it. So the thyroid gland actually exhibits to us a butterfly shaped structure, and that's because it has those two lobes that you can see on the picture there, one to the left, one to the right. And that middle region that kind of gives it that butterfly shape is called the isthmus. So to kind of backtrack here a little bit, nothing happens in the thyroid and parathyroid glands without first coming through the hypothalamus and without the hypothalamus at all. So the hypothalamus is the control center that is actually located in the brain. It's the control center for the endocrine system as well as other systems throughout the body. So the hypothalamus, though, it takes information from hormones, organs, cells, and it takes that information and it gives out responses to other organs, other cells, other hormones to work throughout the body. So within the thyroid gland specifically, the hypothalamus stimulates the release of the TRH, which is the thyrotropin releasing hormone. And it releases that hormone to then go into the pituitary gland. And it's basically telling the pituitary gland, hey, we need more responses. We don't have enough hormones. We don't have enough production going on in the thyroid gland. So then that pituitary gland takes that TRH and then stimulates a release of TSH from the pituitary gland. And TSH is the thyroid stimulating hormone. And that then goes into the bloodstream directly to the thyroid gland. So now we're kind of in the thyroid gland, and one of the things that we really need to mention throughout this project is iodine. So iodine is extremely crucial for the functionality of the thyroid gland and that thyroid hormone production. The thyroid gland is not going to be functional and it's not going to produce those hormones without iodine with it. So iodine actually forms when two oxidized iodide ions are released into the bloodstream. So this obviously happens before getting to the thyroid gland. And normally we can obtain that iodine in our diet through iodized salt, and dairy products are a great resource as well. So within the thyroid gland, the two main hormones that the thyroid gland produces in domestic animals are T4 cells and T3 cells. So T4 cells its common name is T4 cells, but it's actually thyroxine. And this is a thyroid hormone with 4 iodines. So it's the main hormone of the thyroid gland. It's the main hormone that the thyroid gland will produce. But most of the T4 cells are actually going to be converted to T3 cells later on. So the T3 cells are triiodithyramine, and this is a thyroid hormone with 3 iodines. And T3 cells are really important because it helps to make our body's T cells, which are really important. So the thyroid gland and how it stimulates its responses in response to the hypothalamus, how that feedback works is actually on a negative feedback loop. So that's going to look like the pretty picture that I have to the left here. But basically a breakdown of this is that if T3 and T4 production decreases in the thyroid gland, it's going to send that response to the hypothalamus, basically saying, hey, we don't have enough. We're not producing enough. And so then the hypothalamus is going to ramp up. It's going to increase its production of the TRH. And then that's going to then increase our pituitary gland production of TSH. And then eventually we will see levels rise in our T3 and T4 hormones in our levels. And then on the flip side of that, on the other side, if T3 and T4 production, if that hormone production increases, then it's going to tell the hypothalamus, hey, we're doing good, we've got enough. And so the hypothalamus is then going to decrease its production of TRH, which will then decrease TSH and will decrease our T3 and T4 hormone levels. That's obviously in a perfect world, and diseases and illnesses happen, but this is how it is supposed to function normally. Now, next up, we have the parathyroid gland. So the parathyroid gland is located posterior to the thyroid gland, and I just really felt like you couldn't talk about the thyroid gland without also talking about the parathyroid gland. They're virtually connected, as you can see in this picture to the right. But the parathyroid gland is actually, interestingly enough, made up of 4 individual glands. It's a set of 4. And so a fun fact is that you can actually be missing some of your parathyroid gland, but since each gland is its own individual gland, then your hormone production will be decreased and you'll have to have some sort of supplementation in your life to make up for that decreased production. So the parathyroid gland is extremely important. It plays a huge role in maintaining that calcium and phosphorus balance. So calcium, 99% of our calcium is actually stored in our bones. But that 1% left is actually in the blood. And it can be argued that that 1% is probably the most important percent of calcium. We use calcium in the blood for muscle contractions. And our biggest and most important muscle that we need to contract is our heart. So without calcium, our muscles don't contract, and our heart will eventually stop pumping. It will stop contracting, and our blood won't flow, and we'll die. So it's a very delicate balance and a small percentage range to maintain. So the parathyroid gland is extremely important in doing that. Calcium levels are actually maintained by calcitonin, which is housed in the parathyroid gland. But phosphorus, what does phosphorus do in the body? So phosphorus plays an important role in buffering your blood and maintaining your blood pH levels, which are both necessary for that calcium to move through the bloodstream. So you want that balance to be really a good balance. And phosphorus is actually directly inversely related to calcium. So basically, as one increases, the other decreases. So it's a delicate balance to maintain. And all of that is done by the parathyroid gland. Finally, we've got some diseases and illnesses of the thyroid. So number 1 is hyperthyroidism, which is basically an overperforming thyroid, which can be very difficult to gain weight. On the flip side, hypothyroidism is actually an underperforming thyroid and can be very difficult to lose weight. Fun fact, they actually thought that I might have had a slight chance of hypothyroidism in high school, but my levels were somehow in the normal range. Another one is goiter, which is actually really common in goats, specifically the boar goat breed, but it's an enlarged thyroid gland. Then we have diseases and illnesses of the parathyroid, kind of the same kind of idea. We have hyperparathyroidism, which is an overperforming parathyroid. Hypoparathyroidism hypoparathyroidism, which is an underperforming parathyroid. And then we have also calcium illnesses that are related to the parathyroid glands. So sometimes in cattle, right after milk letdown, right when their lactation is letting down, we'll see a severe decrease in calcium levels, which can be pretty detrimental. So in conclusion, just these small glands can have really big impacts on the body. The thyroid and parathyroid are extremely crucial in maintaining our body's homeostasis. And thank you for listening today.